Hi class. In this class, we will find out, for example, if we having an operation, a coffee shop. So in the coffee shop, somebody, the owner comes to you and says, well, let me see if, when can I uh, have my coffee shop is open and when do you think I should close my coffee shop for a rest? So here today we will be looking at this option. So you wonder sometimes why Starbucks is not open, for example, 24 hours, or some restaurant is not open 24 hours. But on the same time, you find out some Tim Hortons stores, Tim Horton places that are open for 24 hours. So when can we have our operation open? At what time we should close it? So this is one of the example we can look at it. This is also applicable for firms, any firm. And when we're talking about firms, we're talking about any store that operate at the profitable level. So let's start the chapter. So in this chapter, the beginning, as we said, eventually we will be looking at how the business should behave during certain times, certain hours, or certain days. But we need to understand some other information like the perfect competition, the other type of market, and the other type of market. So in chapter 8, we'll be talking about the perfect competition. And here will be also, we distinguish among a firm, industry, and a market. And we need to explain what is meant by perfect competition and market system, and use the two approaches to explain how a firm might maximize its profit. When we talk about firm, once again, we're talking about store or company or a manufacturing place. They are all considered in economic terms, they are a firm. And also we're going to learn and explain what is meant by a break-even point or a break-even price and shutdown price, and explain how a firm supply curve is derived, and explain the effect of the change in the market demand and market supply on both the industry, the whole industry, and the firm. Now, when we're talking about industry here, we talk about a group of producers, oil producers, wheat producers. They are industry itself. And then a market is the interaction of both producers and the consumers. So there is a different market in we look at it, and we look at it from the whether it's identical products or differentiated products. And we also look in this case, if it's identical, whether it's a one firm is providing it, many firms, or a few firms. So in the case of if we have an identical product, or products is similar, and we have many firms are producing it, is we call it a perfect competition. So nobody, it's everybody produced the same red apple, and everybody buying the same red apple. That's a perfect competition. Now, if it's an identical product, but in a few firms, so that's what you call undifferentiated oligopolies, because undifferentiated because the product is the same, all red apple, but a few firms is running this business. And then if you have identical product and one firm is running it, is that's what you call a monopoly. We'll bring some examples on the next slide. When the product is differentiated, like a red apple, green apple, mixed apple, so they are and run, and there is in the market only there is many firms. So what you call is a monopolistic competition. It's just like a McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's. These are monopolistic competition because all offers a fast food. Then if you have a differentiated products, yet a few firms involved in it, is called differentiated oligopoly. Let's look at the examples to make it easier for you to understand. In a case of perfect competition, and we said in a perfect competition, there is a numerous sellers, there is undifferentiated product. So the result, what happened is a easy to enter market, and sellers has no price control. So if his price is a little bit higher, he's out. Somebody else will replace him. In a case of monopolistic competition, the number of sellers are many. So there is a lots of sellers are there, and type of product is differentiated, and also because it's a monopolistic competition, it's easy of market entries, so they can establish their own monopolistic, and the seller price control is low. A good example, you look at the OPEC, which is they are made of countries, but they're controlling price of oil. And then you have other big producing like the Russian Federation that also have oil production, and they are running a monopolistic, both of them running monopolistic competition. Now, in this case, where we have in general a few sellers and undifferentiated product and a difficult entry market, and it's moderated, the price control moderated, it's called oligopoly undifferentiated. And then you have the oligopoly differentiated, is usually a few sellers, and the product is a little bit differentiated, which is you have a high-end oil, clean oil, uh, and non-clean oil, a little bit differentiated. And here where it's difficult to enter and substantial. And the last one provider, the type of product is unique, very difficult to enter and substantial. So when it comes to oligopoly and monopoly, is we notice one thing is the fact it's difficult to enter, definitely, and the producer's number of sellers has to be a few or one. And the others is could be perfect numerous is a more than many, and in the monopolistic competition is many. Now, as an example, if you look at a perfect competition, like the wheat, so you can buy the wheat from Canada, from USA, from Australia, from New Zealand, from India. This is a perfect competition. And then you have the monopolistic competition, like convenience stores, 7-Eleven, Max, or the restaurant themselves. And then you have like a oligopoly, but undifferentiated, like the oil refinery, not the oil producer, oil refinery, because they all produce the same oil, or lumber, the one who cut the thing. And you have the oligopolies, but it's differentiated, like automobile. So Honda different than Ford, different than GM, but they all produce cars. Or soft drink, like a Coke versus Sprite versus Pepsi. And the Pepsi produce certain, like I think is Sprite and rest of them, and Coke produce Coke and rest of them. And then you have the perfect monopoly, which is the public. It usually in the field of public utilities, cables, could be an internet provider. These are a telco company, could be. These are monopoly, public utility monopoly case. Now, just a general understanding. So, in what type of market you will find the following types of firms and products. Hairdressing salons as a monopolistic competition because there is a major ones who does provide, there is the small ones, but it's not a perfect. The major ones like Ultracut and there's another one called Hairstyle or something. They are monopolistic competition. Then you have the industrial chemical in Canada. It is undifferentiated oligopolies. It's like a, it's a chemical, so it's a basic thing used for other products, probably for our services. And then you have the brewers. You have different beer, so they are differentiated light beers or regular beer in different companies. So they're differentiated oligopolies. And then you have a world market for coffee, and it's a perfect competition, just like the wheat. And you have Rogers Cables, which is in Ontario. They have the monopoly because they put all the fiber optics and towers. So nobody is allowed to put their fiber optic. They can rent, other companies renting from them, but they don't have they don't have any competition. So in a perfect competition, uh, a market in which all buyers and sellers are price takers. So is according, everybody has no control over price. And in a perfect competition, the condition is you have a many small buyers and sellers, no preferences showing, easy entry and exit by both buyers and sellers, and the same market information available to all. So let's see. Sometimes the stock market could be a perfect competition, and sometimes it's not. In what way in the stock market a good example of perfect competition, and in what ways it is a bad example? It's a good example if many millions of buyers and sellers there comes in and buys everything, and everybody sells things. A product sold, the shares within the company, they're all similar, are all homogeneous. You have 100,000 shares, which is all similar. And then you have a great data of information available about product. But in what way it's a bad example? It is when some buyers and sellers are big enough to affect the prices. And if there is no equal access to the information, there is inside trading is happening, inside information is happening, and there is not free entries into the market. You need to hire a broker. So you might have two stock market. One has this specifications, these three specifications, and that makes it a good stock market. Another stock market who has these specifications, that make it a bad sample. So you run it against the qualifications, and then Accordingly, you drive the understanding whether it's a perfect competition or not. Now, so here what we're looking at competitive or competition in the industry versus the firm. Now, in a pure competition, a single firm has a little effect on overall supply, so the demand is constant. So they cannot, if you produce less, then another firm comes in and produce as what's pending. If you produce a lot, you have to cut down. So the demand is horizontal and the firm is a price taker. That's in the perfect competition. We said there is lots of small firms and lots of buyers for the product. So in general, this is in industry. As you see, the supply is and our demand is a regular curve. So it's like a supply and demand for the market here. But if you look at it from a firm point of view, because a firm is a price taker, it's not determining the price. So the price is at $20. And the demand is if you're increasing it, you will lose. You're not going to do any business. Decrease it, you will lose. You're not going to do any business. So there is, it is a constant demand for per quantities. It's at $20. So you have no control over it. In the industry, no, it's a different where, as demand shift out or shift in, supply shift out, shift in. That's the whole industry. That's on the firm level is constant. But here where we start wondering and see how we can understand and breakdown of different economic terminology within the business, within the firm, in order to analyze the situation of the market. Now, first we need to know what's the total revenue, which is the total revenue is equal with the is a total quantity sold multiplied by the price. That's a straightforward. So the TR is equal with the Q quantity output multiplied by the price. We'll be using more terminology, so you just remember these terminology. So the total revenue or TR is equal to Q multiplied by P. And the average revenue is the amount of revenue received per unit sold. So if I'm selling 100 units at say $100, my average revenue per unit sold is $1. If I'm selling 100 units at $1,000, my average revenue per unit sold is at $10. So the average revenue or the AR is equal with the total revenue. We said like if I'm selling 100 or I'm selling 1,000. So the total revenue, whether I'm making $100 or $1,000, divided by the number of the quantity here, Q. And if we look at the total revenue, we said here, we bring this the Q multiplied by P over the Q. So if we cancel this Q and this Q, which is always same amount, then we have the price remaining. And the price remaining, which is the price, is equal with the average revenue. In other words, so if we are selling one unit, $20, our average revenue per unit is at $20. If we're selling 2 units, which is $40, our average revenue is of $40. The other thing that we need to understand, besides the average revenue and the total revenue, we need to look at the marginal revenue. So if we are selling one more product, how much we are making. And we brought an example saying if we sell 1 unit, I'm making $20. If I'm selling 2 units, I'm making an extra $20. 3 units, I'm making extra $20. if I'm selling each unit at $20. So the extra revenue derived from one more unit is the marginal revenue. And the marginal revenue is usually the change in your total revenue divided by the change of total quantity. So if I'm selling one quantity at $20, my total revenue is only $20. Then I'm selling two quantities at becomes my total revenue is $40. So the change in the total revenue it's $20, 40 minus 20. The change in quantity, 2 minus 1, becomes 1. So the total, my marginal revenue, is the extra revenue derived from one more unit. Now, if we looked again in this, we see that the total revenue is made of what? The change in the quantity multiplied by the price. Keep in mind, here the price is fixed, so you know you're not changing the price. Divided by total revenues. If we break down the changes of the total revenue, it's made of changes of quantity multiplied by price, changes of quantity. Once again, we take out these two, becomes a price equal with the marginal revenue. So what we notice here, the average revenue is equal with the price, and the marginal revenue is equal with the price, means the average revenue and the marginal revenue and the price, they're always equal with each other. So average revenue and marginal revenue and the price are equal. This is only an example. And here, to make it more clear for you, is if your output is zero, your price and you have your pricing your product is at $20, but it's a closed. Your store is closed. You haven't opened it. It's 8:30 and you open at 9 o'clock. So you have nobody's buying, but your price is at 20. Your total revenue, because it's a close, is a zero. Your average revenue, you're not making anything, so it's zero, and your marginal, because you're not selling anything, is zero. But as you open the store and people are buying, when you sell the first unit, your unit's always at $20 that you sold. So to calculate your total revenue is simply by multiplying the price into the quantity. So 3 multiplied by 2 is $60. So we're aware of how much is our total revenue. Now we need to see our average revenue. Our average revenue we keep as much as we are selling. We said the differences, so it's a constant 20s. And the marginal revenue that we generated is also constant 20. And because we came up with we drove this understanding from price equal average revenue and marginal revenue. And that's in for the competitive firms, which is they are a price taker. They are not a price makers. So everybody has the same prices and entries and exits. It's the same thing. So always the price equal with the average revenue equal with the marginal revenue. Now, the total revenue slopes up, more units are sold. So the more you're selling, the total revenue keeps going up. So you're selling 1 unit, 2 unit, 4 unit, and the revenue is keeps going up. So the total revenue is up. But as a firm, the total average and marginal revenue we said it stays constant. So if you notice here, this and this stays constant. As we said, the price equal with the average revenue equal with the marginal revenue. So here it stays constant. So you sell one coffee at $1, two coffees as $40, but each one is a 2020. Three coffees at $60 total revenue, but each one 20, 20, 20. So really the average revenue and the marginal revenue is equal, but it's driven by the demand because we said that the supply has no control over the prices and the demand has no control, is a perfect competition here. So how we calculate the profit, and is a regular, we do the total, the difference between the total revenue and the total cost. So the total revenue, total profit is equal with the total revenue minus total cost. When do we know we have a break-even output? The level of output at which the sales revenue of the firm just cover the fixed and the variable costs, including the normal profit. So, in other words, let's say I'm selling 2 units, which is at $40. I know my fixed cost is $10. My variable cost is another $10. And my manpower, which is me working there, which is a normal part of the normal profit or normal implicit and explicit, we talked about the economic accounting, another 20. So 10 plus 10 plus 20 is a 40. And that 40 is equal with the level of output, which is 2 coffees equal with 40. That's a very expensive coffee, $20 an hour, but that's okay per one, $20. But this is only an example to see it when I'm doing a break even is basically when I'm calculating my explicit and implicit costs and equal with my total sales or total output or total revenue. So the total revenue or the total cost and profit is only an example. So when my output is zero, and I have the price my coffee at $20, so my total revenue, you notice here, I'm not selling anything. So I'm making a zero total revenue. But I do have to pay the rent. I do have an office manager, which is a fixed cost, not the employees. The office manager, the one who runs the business, is a fixed cost. The rent is a fixed cost every month, whether I'm operating or not, is a fixed cost. So here, because I'm paying, my total cost minus my total revenue, because zero is a minus 30. Now, as my output or sales start increasing, when we talk output, that includes maybe sales in this, but there is a demand for it, to put it this way. So I keep my price, which is equal with my average revenue, equal with my marginal revenue. It stays, we know that is at $20. As the output increase, my total revenue is the increase, and my total cost is also increasing. And why is it increasing here? Is because during my total cost, when it's now working, there is only rent I'm paying. But when I'm running a business, I'm bringing an employee, which is that I'm paying him a salary. That's called a variable cost. I'm running electricities, having the lights on, and that's a variable cost. I'm bringing wheat or a coffee beans to make a coffee. That's a variable cost. So my total cost is my fixed cost plus the add-on, the variable cost, which is we notice here as you start producing or the output, your total cost from $30, which is a fixed cost, $30 plus zero variable cost. Now you have a $30 stays a fixed cost of rent plus $18 per every unit you're producing. It keeps increasing. So your total revenue is at 20, and your total cost made of fixed cost, total fixed cost plus total revenue, total variable cost. You subtract this from this, you end up with your minus 28. And as you produce more, the cost is coming down, The total cost comes down because your total revenue it's getting higher and your total fixed cost is getting lower. And eventually, when you produce a 3 unit, you will have total revenue is 60. How come? Because the 20 multiplied by 3 is 60. So that's your total revenue. Now you have a $30 your total cost plus a $30 your total revenue. So your total profit is zero. That's when you do, in a way, a break even. But when you can maximize your profit, is that's where they say, let's put a target sales. When you are making 6 units, and here, when your total revenue becomes at 120, 20 multiplied by 6 is 120, minus your total cost, which is you're making a profit. Here is you are maximizing your total profit. But if you notice here, you have as your total profit is here is a 30, and your total profit here is a 30. We will explain in what's the difference between these two. So you are looking at your cost, although you're increasing your cost by how much? 20, and you're increasing your cost by 20 revenue. And this is where you have the real, productions where you start making the 2 points where you're making the maximize your profit. And as a startup, and in the beginning, we will look at the graph once you see it. And it's the graph it shows here, the total revenue, the cost versus the profit. And if you notice here, we start going through, if you look at the first part, this is the first part. Now, producing less than 3 units or more than 8 result in a loss. So as your total revenue, so it's, as we started, we said that your fixed cost, total cost is made of your fixed cost and variable cost, total fixed cost and total variable cost. And you notice that we said that in your total fixed cost, as you start the business, it's just your fixed cost, which is rent or general managers. So here, when you start at the output of 0, you have a fixed cost. As you're producing, your total revenue keep going up, and also, but your total fixed cost, your total cost, it keeps declining is because your production is coming, you start producing. So your the numbers is increase is less and less. And here at this point, where you have something called a break even. So you do a break even at the 3 units, where your total revenue and total cost is equal. And also you do another break even at 8 units, which is its total revenue and total cost is also equal. And actually the gap between the total cost, which is this one, and total revenue, the highest point is where you maximize your profit. Now, we notice as you are not producing, you're below the cost. So it keeps, you start producing, making some covering up your costs or your loss. You start, then you go to a break-even point, which is a 3, and then you keep making a profit. And the highest point here is when you make 6.66, which is the same idea here. So at the 6, where you make the most profit. Now let's see here at when you make 5. So when you make 5, the difference between this part and this part, or this part and this part, is less than the difference between this part and this part. So 0.6 is the peak here on the graph. So your break even occurs at 3 and 8. Here, producing less than 3 units or more than units result in losses. If you notice here, losses, and here is losses. Break even occurs at 3 or 8. To maximize profit occurs when the distance between total revenue and total cost is the highest. And you need to have the maximizing your profit is always when the total revenue is the higher than the total cost. So at this point is where you have this total revenue is the highest than this graph down there, the total cost. Now, so here, once again, we look at, more deeper in this information, and we have the output, and we have the total cost. We have what you call the marginal cost. The extra cost occur when you are producing one more unit, and you have the marginal revenue. The extra revenue increase when you're selling one more unit, and then you have the marginal surplus or the deficit, which is the difference between these marginal cost and marginal revenue. And then you derive the total profit or loss from total revenue minus the total cost. At zero, you have to pay fixed costs, but you're not producing anything, so there is no extra cost. Only you pay the fixed cost. And you're not selling anything, so there is no extra revenues coming in. And the marginal, which is this minus this, is zero. Zero minus zero is zero. And your profit, because you have to pay rent and you're not making anything, so you have the loss of a 30. Now, when you are starting producing output one unit, so your total cost is going to be your fixed cost plus the variable or the marginal. And the marginal here is 18. So you have 18 plus 30, which is 48, or your variable cost, which is 8. It's the extra cost that you incurred for producing one more unit. And suddenly you're selling at the $20, so your marginal surplus, 20 minus 18 is a 20, but still you're in a loss, because why is that? Because you have a 48 cost, which is made of revenue plus, your fixed cost plus your marginal cost, and you sold only $20 one unit, so you have minus 28. And as you produce more, we know that your marginal costs start going down because your production is more, and your marginal revenue keeps going up because you're still going to make that $20, but the difference between marginal cost and marginal revenue is going to go up and up until you reach to total profit is zero. And here where you are into a break even, so you notice also here at 3 and 8, you are in a break even. You're not taking money home. Here, when you are in the 6, where your marginal surplus, see, you keep reducing until it has to reach zero. So once it's reached zero, that if you produce more, you're going to lose. And if you produce less, you have an opportunity lost. So once it's the difference between the marginal cost and marginal revenue, or the marginal surplus deficit, which is that's what you call is zero, that's when you are at the maximum production. So when you have a coffee shop, you calculate what's the marginal revenues, what's the marginal cost, and then when you notice that the marginal cost and marginal revenue it's at the maximum and you start going into negative, then when you shut down, actually. So this is your break even, you're maximizing your profit. I'm sorry, you're maximizing your profit. But sometimes what's happened, you keep operating even if you're not having maximized your profit because you need to cover what? The basic cost. You say, okay, if I close it, I'm losing $30. But if I'm operating, I'm gonna lose, $20. So I keep operating, not closing it, because in the end I'm gonna lose only $20 instead of more. So we came to the example saying we produce 60 at the total cost of 90. And we're selling at $20 each unit. So 6 multiple 20 is 120 or total revenue, for example. And 120 minus 90, we said, is a 30. Now, as we sell more units, each unit will be making $20. So when it's our marginal cost and marginal revenue becomes zero, then we are at the maximum profit. But we are not always in the operation in a firm. We said we're trying to maximize the profit. We can the second thing, if we cannot maximize the profit, we can minimize the loss. And this is where we look at in operation how we can minimize the loss. So here, as the marginal costs keep reducing, as it's start increasing, we have where the marginal cost equal with the average revenue, equal with the price, equal with the marginal cost. That's where we are in a total profit is maximized. So whenever the marginal revenue, which is this one, equal with the marginal cost, that's when we are at the maximizing the profit. So in other words, when can we keep working, and when we stop working? So if the marginal revenue is more than the marginal cost, so if it's at this level here, which is the marginal cost, we notice is lower than the marginal revenue, then we produce more and more. As we going higher than here, which is the marginal cost becomes from here, start going higher, then we need to produce less and less. So the perfect profit, when we maximize our profit, is when we said when the marginal revenue equal with the marginal cost. So to maximize the total profit is we need to produce where our marginal revenue from selling one unit is equal with our marginal cost, and that's where we are maximizing the total profit. Now, so we noticed we spoke about the break even and we spoke about profit maximization. And here what we're talking about, knowing that the maximum profit at the marginal revenue equal with the marginal cost. So here's what we have. We have the marginal revenue equal with the marginal cost. So you notice here it's going up. So this is where we are maximizing our profit at the 6 unit producing and of output. And the price is at $20, which is average revenue. Okay, average revenue, marginal revenue, and the price, they're one different faces for the same number. But at this point, where the marginal revenue equal with the price equal with the average revenue equal with the marginal cost, we can see that. So the average profit per unit is, the average revenue minus the average cost, because we said the total profit is equal with the total revenue minus the total cost. So the average revenue profit is the average revenue minus the average cost, which is a 20 minus 15 is 15. So here our cost is 15 and we're selling it at 20. But what's our total profit? It comes in from the total, the average price multiplied by the total quantity, which is $30. So your total profit is shaded in this blue area, in this area, okay? From here to here. This is your cost, and this is your profit. And then we said there is two breaking even point at 3 units and 8 units. And we said the best place to maximize our profit is when marginal revenue equal with the marginal cost. Now, in the previous chapter, we spoke about economic and normal profit, explicit, implicit costing. And we said when you do accounting, regular accounting, you do only explicit costing, is what money goes to the third party for the landlord, for the electricity, for paying your rent, for the employees you're hiring. But there is other costs that we're not doing it in the accounting approach. It is the things that I'm working there. There is, there's also cost in it, but we're not taking it into the accounting. Um, for example, if I'm a cleaner, I'm say I make $30,000 a year, but I'm opening my business. This is an opportunity cost of the 30,000 that I'm not making outside, but I'm not running a salary for me. If I'm a doctor, I might be making 150 or $200,000. So it is different. We need to take into that in order to do the economic calculation and economic accounting, which is economic profit. So economic profit, it is the profit of an entity achieved after accounting the implicit and the explicit. And the normal profit occurs when the economic profit is zero, or alternatively, when the revenue equal explicit and implicit costs. So say I'm running a coffee shop and I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to be making 150,000, but I am a doctor, not doing my job, which is as a doctor. So I have 150,000 opportunity lost here. We keep it on the side. Now we do a calculation, and I'm making 500,000 from making this coffee, not running any salaries for me, or this $500,000 is usually $300,000 or $400,000 is my cost. So 500 minus $400,000, my regular accounting is a 100,000. But when I'm bringing the implicit cost, which is 150,000 as a doctor, then I'm losing $50,000 here. So the normal profit occurs when the profit is zero, or alternatively, when the revenue equal with implicit and explicit costs. Now, so here where we saw looking at break even and shutdown. The price, the break-even price, is the price at which a firm makes only normal profit, that is make a zero economic profit. So not accounting here, we do economics profit, which is implicit cost, explicit cost, minus total revenue minus implicit cost and explicit cost. So as long as the loss from production are less than fixed costs, the firm should continue to produce. I will explain that in the graph. This means that the firm should produce as long as its total revenue equal to the two or greater than total variable cost. So your total revenue keep producing higher than your total variable cost. You keep producing. Maybe you are in a level of losing, but not you covering your fixed cost. In the shutdown is the price that is the firm sufficient to cover a firm's variable cost. This is when you tell the coffee owners, this is when you're supposed to close your coffee at what time. So to explain that more, now we have two issues. One issue is a break even, and this level is the break even price, and this level is the shutdown. What's the difference? The difference is here. At this level or before it, we notice that the average price is higher than the price itself, I'm sorry, is higher than your average price. And that's when you start to keep producing. But once it goes, your price is lower than average, then when you do a shutdown. So anything above your average price, this one, you keep reducing if your prices. Anything, what it goes below this average price, which is could be here, any point here, that's when you shut down. So at $8, you close your coffee shop because you are only selling what? You're selling 4 units or 3 units or 2 units. As more the price is at $14, that's when you keep selling more. So the minimum break even price is where the total cost is the lowest. That's when you do a break even price. So your total cost is the lowest. The firm shut down if the price fall beyond the average cost. So when I'm keep operating is when my I am above the average cost. When I'm stopping is when I'm below the average cost. That it's a different when we're talking a profitable or non-profitable, as the whole idea is we are operating to maximize our profit. But once we are not maximizing our profit, the next thing we're looking at how to minimize our loss. And our loss when things goes below the average variable cost. In other words, if I'm bringing a guy to produce 5 coffees because he's charging me $20 an hour, which is he has to do $4 a coffee, and suddenly I see him, he is only able to produce three or two or one. There, when I see bringing a guy, hiring him, and he is and considered to be an average variable and a variable cost for me, and I see he's producing less than four, then when I'm closing. So the minimum break-even price is the average total cost is the lowest. The firm shut down if price falls below the average variable cost minimum, as we noticed that. So when you are shutting down, you need to know that you are shutting down anytime below the average variable cost. And as you hear what's happening here, you are doing a break even at this point. Now, we jump to another issue that we need to look at it also, is the fact that industry demand and supply. We looked at the firms' demand and supply, and we said that the firms, different than industry. In the short run, the size of both the firm and the industries are fixed. That's in the short run. But in the long run, both are variable. What is that? In a short run, the size of the firm is fixed. In the short run, the number of firms is also fixed because the capacity of the industry is fixed. You cannot adjust in the 2 minutes to meet the demand. But in the long run, the size can vary and the firm can go bigger and smaller. The number of the firms can also vary according to the demand. The capacity of industry also in general can vary. Now, let's look at this example, how this affects on a firms and effect on industry, the whole industry. So let's say at the initial point where D1 and S1 at the point A, that's the equilibrium. So suddenly we have an increase in demand, not increase in supply, increase in demand. So we notice the price keeps going up, went up. And as in a short run, an increase in demand increased the price to a B. There's not much supply, but the prices is keep increasing, so the price is going higher. And then in the long run, we see an adjustment because suddenly there's more profit. We know from the early chapters that there would be a shift out in the supply, more suppliers coming in the market. So that's what really has happened. And that shift causing the move to the point B to a point C. The long run, the new firm in the firm that increasing supply is returning to the price C. So again, it goes back to the C. And we notice here what's happened to the firm. The price went up and then went down. The increase in the price and output is only a temporary in the firms. In the industries, the price goes back to the C. Now, the effect of a decrease in demand here is an increase. A decrease in demand, what will happen? We notice that the first thing is going to happen, decrease in demand, shift in, and not the price shift in, which we spoke about it, and the difference between why things is a decrease in demand is different than the prices within. As it shifts in, the price becomes a what? At equilibrium point of initial was a P1, and the demand shift in becomes a B1. As then we notice because the prices went down, there is less suppliers, people getting out, the supplies getting out, and the supplies will shift in and goes back to the same price of equilibrium. So the prices did not change, the quantity was just reduced. So the industry now has a lower output at the C point, but the firm output return again to the regular, which is its point back again. Now, keep in mind, in the long run supply of industry, increasing costs industry. If the price of resource and producer both raises as the industry expands, the result is an increasing cost of the industries. So if the price of resources and product both increases as the industry expand, and we know that industry will be expanding according to the shift out of the demand. But there is a decreasing cost industry if the price of resources and product both fall as the industry expand. So there is a decreased cost of the industry causing it, or vice versa. And then you have a constant cost industry if the price of resource and product remain unchanged as the industry expands. So if you notice, there's more stores around, and the price is there. It's because the industry cost is lowering and they're making more profit, so there is more suppliers there. So the concept to remember in the end is the difference between a firm, an industry, and a market. And we noticed we spoke about monopoly, oligopolies, all these things, and then we finished talking about industry versus the firm, what happens, and the source of the perfect, and also we need the concept to remember the source of perfect competition and the market system, how firm maximizes profit. We talked about the break even and the shutdown, and we talked about a firm supply curve from from the marginal costs of course. And also we spoke about the impact of the change in the demand or supplies on the firms and the industry, the last slide. So this is the end of the chapter.